My brother was always the golden child while I was ignored and underestimated. Years later, one unexpected message forced him to see me very differently. My brother, Jason, came out of the womb with that easy charm. People just liked him. Teachers, coaches, neighbors, it did not matter. He walked into a room, and suddenly the whole place lit up. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the tag-along, the kid who got introduced as Jason's little brother and nothing more. I do not think it was ever said out loud, but you could feel it. Like wallpaper, always there, just part of the house. He was the natural. I was the late bloomer. He was the leader. I was the follower. Jason spoke, people listened. I spoke, people waited politely, and then changed the subject. I remember this one time. I must have been in second grade. I had spent days building this cardboard solar system for a science fair. Painted every planet. Made rings for Saturn out of fishing line. It was a mess, but it was mine. Jason walked by, looked it over, and said, "Looks kinda crooked." That was it. That was all it took. I remember my mom laughing. "Well, you will figure it out later," she said, not even looking up from her magazine. That line stuck. You will figure it out later. And I guess I did. Just not the way they expected. See, when you grow up being the background noise, something happens. You start fading into yourself. You stop offering opinions because no one really wants to hear them. You start second-guessing every idea you have before it even comes out of your mouth. I got good at being invisible. Jason, on the other hand, kept soaring. Varsity football, prom king, business school. My parents called him the future of the family. I got called dependable, which I eventually realized was code for not threatening. That dynamic? It ran deep. At dinners, I barely spoke. Jason would hold court, telling stories like he was already running a Fortune 500 company. If I chimed in, it was like tossing a pebble into a thunderstorm, just got swallowed up. By the time we were both in college, him at a top state school, me at community college part-time while working nights, I had accepted it. I had stopped trying to be seen. But you can only swallow your voice for so long before it starts chewing you up from the inside. And the worst part? I was not even angry. Not yet. I just felt tired. Tired of always being second place in a race I did not even sign up for. Tired of being the one expected to support while he got to lead. Tired of being told, without words, that my time would come, if I just waited. But then something happened. Not something big. Not some dramatic explosion. Just a moment. A small, quiet moment where I decided maybe I would stop waiting and start building something of my own. The shift did not come with fireworks. It was more like a slow thaw. At 21, I was living in a basement apartment so small you could touch both walls if you stretched your arms. I worked at a shipping warehouse during the day, sorting boxes and breaking down pallets. Nights, I taught myself things off YouTube, basic coding, web design, even some bookkeeping. No one knew I was doing it. Not even my closest friends. I did not mention it to my parents because I knew exactly how it would go. They would smile politely, then ask what Jason was up to. That used to sting. But after a while, you start expecting it. I would say something like, "Work's been good," and they would nod and go, "Did you hear Jason might be moving to Austin for that new position?" Like clockwork. I stopped trying to compete. It was like trying to yell across a canyon. My voice never made it to the other side. So I just got quiet. Focused. I built a portfolio. Nothing fancy. Some mock websites for fake businesses. A landscaping company. A photography studio. I posted them online using free hosting platforms. Each one better than the last. Cleaner, tighter, more confident. Still, no one saw it. And that was fine. Honest. There is something strangely freeing about being underestimated. Expectations weigh people down. But when no one expects anything from you, there is room to move. To breathe. To try things. Fail quietly. Start over. One night, I got an email from a woman named Beth. Said she ran a dog grooming business out of her garage and loved one of my sample websites. Asked how much I would charge to build her something similar. I stared at the screen for 10 straight minutes. She thought I was a real web designer. I had never had a client before. I had never quoted a rate. I had no idea what I was doing. But I said yes. Charged her $200. Took me 3 weeks to finish it. She loved it. Then she told her cousin, who told a friend, who owned a vape shop, who ran a small car detail business. And just like that, I had a trickle of clients. Nothing big, just local folks who needed simple stuff. But it was mine. Mine. Jason never heard about it. I doubt he would have cared even if he had. My dad still called now and then to check in, which usually meant asking if I had seen Jason's latest LinkedIn post or how his new condo looked in the photos Mom emailed around. I would say, "Yeah, looks nice." He would reply, "He is always moving forward, huh?" Always moving forward. I knew that phrase too well. But what no one realized was, I was moving too. Quietly. Slowly. And with every new project, every satisfied client, every late night, I spent learning how to do something I had no business knowing. I was laying bricks. Not for a castle. Not for a spotlight. Just a path. A path no one saw coming. But I did. And I was just getting started. The first time I noticed the shift in Jason's voice, we were sitting at my parents' dining table. He had flown in for Thanksgiving. Walked through the door like a returning war hero. He had that new watch on, the kind that catches light from across the room. Everyone noticed it. Mom called it classy. Dad said it looked executive. I just sat at the end of the table, buttering rolls and waiting for someone to ask how my week had been. They never did. Dinner was the usual show. Jason telling stories, everyone laughing. Dad brought up an old photo of Jason winning a high school track meet. Passed it around like it was a sacred artifact. No one passed around the picture I sent 2 months earlier. Me standing in front of my first client's brick-and-mortar shop, smiling like a fool next to the window sticker I had designed. I guess that did not look like success to them. At one point, Jason leaned back in his chair, stretched his arms, and asked me casually, "So what are you up to these days, man?" Not in a curious way, more like he was humoring me. I told him I had picked up some freelance work, helped a local business launch their site, built another for a food truck. I said it soft, like I was handing over something fragile. He nodded slowly. Cool, cool. Sounds like a hobby. Then he moved on. Asked Dad about the football game. Asked Mom if she was still making that lemon cake he liked. A hobby. That word hit like a slap I was supposed to thank him for. After dinner, I helped clear plates. Jason was on the couch with Dad, the two of them flipping through real estate listings on the iPad. I overheard him say, "Once I get the bonus, I'm thinking Miami. Or maybe Nashville. Somewhere that moves." And in that moment, I realized something. He still saw me as the same little brother from high school. The one who got cut from the basketball team. The one who asked him to buy beer for parties. The one who would figure it out later. And maybe that was the version he needed me to be. Because if I changed, the whole story changed. So I stayed quiet. Drove home that night through the dark, my windshield fogging up from the cold. I did not turn on the music. I just sat in the silence and let it soak in. And somewhere in that silence, a decision formed. I was done waiting for someone else to rewrite the story. It was time I started telling it myself. But first, I needed to disappear from the parts of their world where I was still expected to be small. I did not make some big announcement. There was no dramatic Facebook post. No angry speech at a family dinner. I just stopped showing up to the places where I felt small. That started with Jason's engagement party. Mom called 3 times to remind me about it. Left voicemails like I was a teenager who forgot his chores. I texted back once, "Hope it goes well." That was it. Jason did not call at all. I figured he assumed I would be there. Probably thought I had nothing better going on. He was half right. That Saturday, I was not at the country club in a blazer drinking overpriced cocktails with real estate agents. I was holed up in my little apartment, working on a project for a local therapist who wanted a full website and branding. She had no budget and a logo drawn in Microsoft Paint. But she was kind. And she believed in people who lived off hope more than cash. She paid me in 2 parts, spaced out over a month, and cried when I delivered the final site. Told me it made her feel legit for the first time in years. I stared at that email for a long time. Legit. It did not come with applause or a raise or family praise. But it meant more to me than anything Jason ever said. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet on the family thread. Jason's fiancée, Claire, started posting things like, "Brunch with the in-laws clinking glasses #blessed," and Mom commented under every one with 100 heart emojis. No one noticed I had stopped replying. Until Jason called one night. It was late, around 10. I was in the middle of debugging something and almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to pick up. His voice was chipper at first. The usual Jason tone. "Hey man, just wanted to check in. Everything good?" I said yeah. He went on, making small talk about wedding planning, complaining about the DJ options Claire was picking. I listened, waiting. Then he said it. "So, Claire's parents were asking about you. Wondered what you were doing these days." He laughed. but there was a tightness behind it, a hesitation. I told him I was working, freelancing. He paused. Still doing that website stuff? Still, like it was a phase, like I should be past it by now. But this time, I said something different. Yeah, actually growing it into a business. Picked up a few clients. Got a wait list now. He let out a soft, huh. Then he said, that's cool. Except it did not sound like he meant it. And that was the moment I realized the old story was starting to crack. He was not sure where to place me anymore. I was not the failure. I was not the joke. But I was not part of the story he told about himself, either. The one where he was the trailblazer. And now, I was starting to build my own trail. One he could not see. One he could not lead. The first real test came 6 months later. Jason invited me to a cookout, one of those spring things our parents like to throw just to feel like a family. I had not seen him since that phone call. He sent the invite through a group text. Just said, everyone's coming. You should too. I stared at it for a while before replying. Then I said, sure. Not because I wanted to go, but because I needed to see if anything had changed. When I showed up, the yard was already full. Claire was there, laughing with her parents near the grill. Jason stood in the center like a host at his own coronation, holding court with some of his college buddies. No one looked twice when I walked in. I grabbed a soda and found a seat by the fence. Eventually, Jason came over, flashing that smile of his. Hey, look who finally made it. I nodded. Yeah, been busy. He raised an eyebrow. Still doing that digital thing? I almost smiled. It's a creative agency now, I said. 3 part-time contractors. Might be hiring full-time soon. He blinked, just for a second, then laughed like he thought I was joking. No way. Seriously? Seriously. He stood there for a moment, nodding slowly, like he was processing something that did not compute. Then he said, well, that's awesome, man. Really. But I could feel it. A flicker of unease. Like someone handed him a puzzle piece that did not fit the picture he already built. Later that night, Dad brought out his old projector and started flipping through family photos, something he did when the beer kicked in. Old birthdays, vacations, Jason's college graduation. That one came up and froze on the screen. Jason smiled. Dad smiled. Mom teared up. Then Jason turned to me and said, you'll get your moment one day, man. Like I had not already started living it. That is when it hit me. They did not want to see it. Because if they saw it, they would have to admit they had been wrong. And for people like Jason, people who were always told they were right, being wrong feels like drowning. So they ignore it. Pretend it is a phase. A hobby. An accident. But I knew better. I did not need them to see it. I just needed to keep going. Even if I had to do it with no audience. It started with an email. Not a call. Not a text. Just a cold, plain email sent to the contact form on my business website. No mention of family. No greeting. Subject line, marketing help, urgent request. The sender? Jason. At first, I thought it was a joke. Maybe a prank from one of his buddies. But it was him. Full name, work email, company signature. I read it twice. Turns out, the startup Jason had joined, this flashy fitness tech company he had been bragging about last Christmas, was in trouble. Something about poor branding, weak conversion, investors breathing down their necks. He was reaching out for support, he said. They needed a digital overhaul. Web design, content, email flow, the whole thing. He wanted to know if my agency could take it on. My name was not even in the message. Just your team. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen for a long while. This was the same guy who once called my work a hobby. The same brother who laughed when I said I had clients. The one who stood over me my entire life like I was some side character in his movie. Now he was filling out my form like I was just another vendor. I did not respond right away. I took the rest of the day to think. And the more I sat with it, the more I realized this was not just about a website. This was about the moment. That moment when someone who always stood above you suddenly looks up and finds you already standing. The next morning, I emailed him back. Professional tone. No jokes. No warmth. Just facts. I told him our calendar was full for the next 6 weeks. That if he wanted to book the next available project window, he would need to put down a deposit. I included a quote. I made it competitive, but not cheap. 25% upfront. Jason replied within an hour. He said he understood and was looping in his manager. Manager? That was when I realized he was not the boss. He was just the guy who used to play one in our family. That weekend, our mom called. Said Jason had mentioned I might be helping out his company. Her voice had this weird tone, like she wanted to be supportive, but still did not quite know how. "That is impressive," she said, unsure of the word. I just said, "Thanks," and changed the subject. But deep down, it felt like something had cracked. Not just in them, in me. For the first time, I was not looking for approval. I was drawing boundaries, and they had no idea what to do with that. The project wrapped in 4 weeks. My team crushed it. The rebrand, the website, the back-end automation, all of it was tight. Efficient. Clean. We even helped boost their conversion rate by over 30% in the first 10 days. I knew the numbers because I watched them like a hawk. Jason never said thank you. His emails stayed clipped, short, almost robotic. Everything came through his manager, except the occasional line where he chimed in to say things like, "Looks good," or "Let's move this to Q3. No acknowledgement of who I was. What this meant. Just business. And that was fine. Because here is the thing. I had stopped needing recognition from him a long time ago. What I did notice was how quiet he got after the results came in. He stopped posting as much on LinkedIn. The usual humble brags about team growth and leadership excellence faded. He skipped the next family gathering, Dad's birthday, and told Mom he had a work thing. I showed up, brought a bottle of bourbon for Dad and a bouquet for Mom, just like Jason used to. We sat around the kitchen table, same as always. Only difference was this time, the attention shifted. Mom asked how the business was going, genuinely. Dad said he saw something I had built on a friend's phone and was impressed. My aunt mentioned her coworker's daughter was starting a nonprofit and needed help with branding. I was not used to being at the center of the conversation. And honestly, it made me uncomfortable, because I could still feel the old script running underneath. The one where I am supposed to deflect. Stay small. Make room for Jason. But Jason was not in the room. And for the first time, I was not filling that space with silence. I was filling it with me. That night, Mom walked me to the door. Right before I left, she put her hand on my arm and said, "I think your brother is struggling more than he lets on." I just nodded. Because deep down, I knew she was not telling me that for him. She was telling me in case I planned on kicking him while he was down. But I was not interested in that. I did not want to win against Jason. I just wanted to stop losing to him. It was a Tuesday. Gray sky, no rain. Just that thick, still kind of quiet where the world feels like it is holding its breath. Jason called me. Not a text. Not an email. An actual call. I stared at the screen for a good 10 seconds before answering. "Hey," I said, neutral. He was quiet at first. Then he let out a breath that sounded more like a sigh that had been waiting years to escape. "Do you ever feel like you missed something?" he asked. No greeting. No explanation. Just that. I waited. Let him keep talking. He said the company was cutting staff. The product was flopping again. Investors were unhappy. His team had been reshuffled, and he was no longer in charge of anything important. It's like, I blinked, and I'm not the guy anymore. That hit me harder than I expected, because he had always been the guy, and for the first time, he sounded lost. Then he said something I will never forget. "I think I built everything to make people proud, and now that it's falling apart, I don't even know who I am without it." I sat there in silence, not because I was shocked, but because I knew exactly how that felt. That had been my life for years, trying to be good enough to be noticed, to belong, to finally stop being invisible. I just went about it in the quiet, the slow, the back roads no one saw. He had taken the highway, and now he was broken down. He said something else, too. "I saw your latest project. The nonprofit thing. That's real. It matters." It was the first time in 30 years I had ever heard my brother admit that something I did mattered. But even then, there was no apology, no confession, just the edges softening. I told him I had no advice. Just that sometimes, when everything gets quiet, that is when you finally hear your own voice. He did not respond right away. Then he just said, "Yeah, maybe that's what I'm afraid of." And in that moment, I did not feel better than him. I did not feel like I had won anything. I just felt human. Like maybe, for once, we were two people standing on level ground. I used to think clarity would come with some big moment. A trophy, a check, a headline, something loud. But instead, it came in the middle of a Tuesday morning, eating toast in the same kitchen I had lived in for years, while an invoice cleared on my phone and a message popped up from a young designer I had mentored. He said, "Thanks for taking a chance on me." Nobody else even replied. I just stared at those words. Because that used to be me. The kid sending out emails to people who never looked twice. The guy showing up at family dinners hoping someone would ask how he was doing. And now I was the one people came to. Not because I was the loudest. Not because I sold them some perfect version of success. But because I stuck around. Because I kept showing up when nobody clapped. I still did not have a fancy title. Still wore the same hoodie most days. Still drove the same dented car. But I had built something real. My agency had 8 clients. 2 team members were about to go full-time. And I had just turned down a contract from a company that wanted me to water everything down to appeal to mass markets. I said no, because now I knew who I was building for. And it was not to impress Jason or win over my parents. It was for people like me, quiet starters. People who had been told their time would come later, like they were always running behind someone else's clock. I sat on the porch that night, just listening to the wind scrape through the trees. No crowds, no applause, just peace. And that peace? That was mine. It did not come with a bang. It came in whispers, in the steady rhythm of quiet work, in the spaces where I had once been ignored and now filled with purpose. A few weeks ago, Mom called me out of the blue, said she had found a box of old school projects in the attic. Mine and Jason's. Wanted to know if I wanted to come pick them up before she tossed them. I almost said no, but something told me to go. The house felt smaller than I remembered. The wallpaper in the hallway had not changed. The kitchen still smelled like lemon cleaner and toast. I walked in, and for a second, I was 10 years old again. Small. Background. Mom met me at the door. She looked tired, softer around the edges. She handed me the box without saying much. But right before I left, she put a hand on my arm and said, "You know, I think we got it wrong sometimes." I just nodded. Because yeah, they did. And so did I. I took the box home. Left it on my dining table for 2 days before finally opening it. Inside were old report cards. A crumpled soccer photo. One of those papier-mâché solar system models, mine. Crooked. Lopsided. Strings still tangled. And for the first time, I saw it for what it really was. Not a failure. A beginning. Jason still calls sometimes. We talk like brothers now. Less about achievements, more about life. He is working through his stuff. Trying to figure out what matters when the applause fades. He does not try to be the golden boy anymore. And I do not try to catch up to him. Because I stopped chasing his shadow the moment I realized it was not real. It was a story. One I had been handed. And now, I am writing my own. You want to know the truth? Being underestimated is not a curse. It is a blank page. No one sees you coming. So when you arrive, you do not need permission. You just need to keep walking. Keep building. Keep believing in the quiet parts. Because sooner or later, you will look around and realize you are already there.